We're back, and we're continuing this series where we are breaking down every villain on the Dream SMP. I've gone through every character and narrowed the villains down to 8 people, and today we are looking at none other than the blood god himself, Technoblade. If you haven't seen my previous videos, I highly suggest that you check them out. Our goal in this series isn't just to do a character study of each villain, but to be able to name who the greatest villain on the Dream SMP is by the end of it all. Each video will break down their own character, ending in a final video where we compare each villain against each other. So consider subscribing so that way you don't miss out on any of the upcoming videos. I'm releasing each video every other day just about, so make sure you're checking back often. And again, make sure just to watch all the previous videos so you can create your own list of villains as well. Now let's get to the video. Let me quickly recap the way that we're looking at the villains of the Dream SMP. To start off, we are quickly explaining why they're considered the villain, and then we're breaking each one down. The way we're breaking down the villains are based off of a 5-point list from the Masterclass article. The 5 points are a strong connection to the hero, clear morality, a worthy opponent, compelling backstory, and that the villain should be fun. As always, each of these 5 points will be more clearly broken down as we address them, so if they don't fully make sense now, don't worry, they will by the end of this. Technoblade. What makes him a villain? Despite our love for him and his character, we must recognize where he stands in relation to the main timeline of the Dream SMP. The story revolves around L'Manberg and the discs, and it's quite clear to see where Technoblade stands on at least one of these points.
You want to be a hero, Tommy? Then die like one! I choose blood!
No. Oh no!
No witnesses! No witnesses, get him! Look at your country fall, Tubbo! Look at it fall!
Whether or not Technoblade is right or wrong, we must recognize that everything he does ends in destruction. He opposes the main characters as well as fights alongside their enemies, and this means that Technoblade is a villain. Side fill with super anecdote, but my first exposure to the Dream SMP was actually with sad-ist's second animation, and in that, my takeaway was that Technoblade was the villain, and with no background on the server, that was understood. Again, whether or not Techno is in the wrong is up for debate, but he is the villain. But what is Technoblade's connection to the hero? The Masterclass article states that the best villains are inextricably connected to the hero and aid the hero's character development. First off, who are the heroes to Technoblade's villainy? Who does Techno oppose? Firstly, he opposes L'Manberg. Broadly speaking, he opposes government, but since L'Manberg is the main adversary in his quest for anarchy, we're going to be referring solely to L'Manberg. And secondly is Tommy. We'll get more into the connections of these two in the backstory segment, but let's take a look at the development of Tommy as an example for a second. When Tommy and Techno lived together, they grew. More specifically, Tommy grew. Technoblade helped Tommy understand his true ideals, not in the sense that Technoblade rubbed off on Tommy, but Techno forced Tommy to be able to fully recognize and articulate where he stood. We see the culmination of this in Tommy and Techno's confrontation with the rest of the server in the community house. In this moment, Techno had brought Tommy to a point where he faced all 3 of his adversaries at once. Dream, the man who possesses discs, Tubbo, whose friendship he had forsaken, and the L'Manberg, where he truly belonged. Technoblade was an integral part in the hero's development. But in the case of L'Manberg, well, Techno blew it up. Twice. This caused L'Manberg to evolve and to recognize the reality of its own existence. It took it from being a benign nation to a self-absorbed nation to a nation that was broken beyond repair. The second point in our grading scale is a clear morality, and this one is easy. No character on the server has been more clear and, more importantly, more steadfast in their morality. Techno opposes government. He does not compromise on this stance and does not show mercy for anyone who opposes him. It's short, it's simple, but there is one point that makes this so incredibly strong. You believe that Techno is right. I mentioned this in another Technoblade video, but Techno convinced everyone that anarchy was the way to go. Think about that. An ideology that is so inherently and obviously flawed is what Techno convinced you was right. This man who preached that anarchy would bring peace is the same man who caused destruction everywhere he went. And even with that blatant contradiction of character, you were still convinced that he was right. A worthy opponent. This is the area where Technoblade suffers the most, from an intellectual to a combat standpoint. No one was a threat to Techno. He outworked, outthought, and outperformed everyone who came across his path. Even Dream, the most powerful man on the server, came to Techno for help in destroying L'Manberg. Although Tommy stood his ground at the end with his beliefs, they didn't hold a candle to the dedication of Techno. And L'Manberg was so fractured from within that it also wasn't strong enough to truly threaten Technoblade on a physical level. Even though this is a weak point, he rises right back up with a compelling backstory. From the very beginning, Technoblade established himself as someone who opposed government, and this worked as a perfect avenue for him to join Wilbur and Tommy in their quest to retake Manberg. After they retook Manberg, the betrayal of Techno's ideas by Wilbur and Tommy made you sympathize with Techno. Then after he left to live a peaceful life, started the farm, getting resources, staying out of everyone's way, an army was sent to hunt him down. Conflict was in search of him. In that moment as well, we felt sympathy for him. Then after that, he paired with Tommy, planning to destroy the Manberg. But then in front of everyone, Tommy betrays Techno. Whether right or wrong, we don't look at Techno as an axe swinging wildly in the wind. He's not a beacon of chaos, an uncaring weapon, but he's a person who was betrayed, and we felt that. It adds to his character almost more than anything else could. And finally, villains should be fun, and oh my, Techno fits that bill. Another reminder in case you forgot, but the meaning behind this point is when the villain comes on screen, it should make you want to sit up and take note of what they're doing and what they have to say. And Techno exemplified both of these points. From the Second L'Manenberg War with the story of Theseus to the final battle and his confrontation with Tommy, Technoblade didn't just grab your attention, but he grabbed your heart. You could feel exactly what Technoblade was feeling. You felt his rage when he was in battle, you felt his pain when he was betrayed, and you felt the conviction when he was faced with opposition. When Techno spoke, you listened. This is Technoblade, an incredibly dedicated, steadfast villain that brought the Dream SMP to life. Go check out the other videos in this series where we break down other villains such as Jack Manifold and Sapnap. More videos are coming soon though, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled. And again, please consider subscribing and let me know your thoughts on Techno as a villain. I can't wait to hear your thoughts below, and I'll see you guys in a few days for the next upload. Adios!